All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I am so happy to have you here this morning and really appreciate you spending a few minutes at Coffee with Kate to talk with myself and Anna Lynch, who I will introduce here in a moment about our veterans work. So, to get started, for any of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Kate McGarvey. I am the executive director here at Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, or LASCO, as we call it. I have been the executive director since 2019, but I have been with Legal Aid in one form or another since 2001. As you can see, I have two children, the pictures of my husband and my kids, as well as my mom there. We live in Upper Arlington and have a busy, wonderful life with our cats and our dogs as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're really hoping to spend this coffee with Kate focusing on our veterans work. We've been really happy that we've been able to expand our work with veterans over the past few years. That has been in large part due to Anna's work and the work of her team. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that today. Anna, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here and excited to tell you about the work that we do with veterans here at LASCO and my role in that. I'm originally from South Dakota, and then I spent several years in Iowa before coming to Ohio. I joined LASCO in late 2023, and I didn't know a lot about Ohio before I moved here, and I'll just say it's been a fantastic place to raise my young family. And we're really enjoying it so far. There's the picture of us at the conservatory. We went for the butterfly garden. Um, and if you want to know about my favorite coffee, right now it's Royal Flamingo on King Avenue. And I happen to know the artist who drew this. So you could say I'm her patron as she lives with me. But no, I'm excited to be here and tell you about what we do. And of course, I'm not doing this alone. We have Elliot O'Malley, who's a Grasbaugh Fellow. Um, that's a new year-long position. The Grasbaugh Veterans Project has worked with us for a few years to fund various fellowship opportunities, and it's been fantastic to have someone in a year-long role. Elliot's brought a lot of uh, enthusiasm and energy to his role, and has definitely increased the amount veterans that we're able to serve. And if you're unaware of the Grasbaugh Fellowship, it's a really uh, meaningful story as Captain Grasbaugh was killed in action in Iraq, and his wife set up the fund so that people continued to get uh, good work done in his name. So we're happy to be a part of that.
Thanks, Anna. A little background for those who might be first-time guests at Coffee with Kate or not as familiar with our organization. Our office covers 36 counties. We do that through 8 offices. We have teams like Anna's and some other groups that do serve the whole service area, but in conjunction with those offices throughout the 36 counties and in those 8 physical locations. All right. So, Anna, you said that you joined in 2023. What drew you to this specific role?
Yeah, so I have been lucky enough to serve veterans in just about every job I've had after college. My growing up, my mom was a member of the U.S. Navy Reserve's Nurse Corps, and she did that to pay for nursing school, and then it became a cool part of our family life for a couple of decades there. Beyond that, uh, all of her siblings were also active duty military. And I think when I first realized that I wanted to do some sort of legal work with veterans in particular was when my great uncle Don he was a proud Air Force veteran and he was dying of cancer. And I asked him if he thought it was related to Agent Orange. And he said he did think so, but he served at an Air Force base in Thailand, so he wasn't going to be able to get that service connected. And I was young and had not gone to law school, but I knew that had to be wrong. So I helped him apply for disability, and thankfully he was granted that. And after he passed, um, my Aunt Donna, they were more like grandparents to me than aunt and uncle. She was able to uh, live in security based on that disability compensation she received. So when I first saw this job posting, I just felt so lucky that I could combine um, legal aid and serving folks uh, with legal assistance, even if they can't afford an attorney, and then especially if it's that veteran population that's always been special to me. So, um, and what does my work look like every day? I mean, I'm lucky to be able to live out our mission. I think that's one of my favorite things about working at somewhere like Legal Aid, where it's not just like something that's up on the wall. It's how we work every day. So um, I get to work with veterans, uh, not often on the best day, to overcome things that are unfair, the systems that are kind of set against them sometimes, and you know, working to make sure every veteran gets what they deserve, whether it's in the VA context or just a civil legal problem that they're having outside of the VA benefit system. That's important work. And the more veterans we can help provide a stable future for, the better. So, and I'd like to tell you the story of one of my clients, Eric. Um, so Eric was had served in Germany, and he was a tank mechanic. He, I'm not sure if you've seen a tank in real life, but they're ginormous. And he fell off the top of one and injured his shoulder, and he also injured his wrist. He's then spent a couple of decades living in Germany. He married someone there, had children there. He didn't realize, honestly, that um, his injuries were something that he could get compensated for. Um, when he moved back to the States, he was in his he was older then and worked many years in hard labor, and those injuries were really making it difficult for him to maintain a job. And he uh, applied for disability once he became aware of it. That was in 2016. Then he came to us in 2018 because they denied his claim. Um, I think this story also illustrates how slow the VA moves because we didn't have a hearing in his case until 2024. And in 2025, we found out that we were successful and that they were going to be giving him benefits back to his application date of 2016. So that amounted to a retro award of $136,000 and then $2,000 a month in ongoing benefits. Um, so uh, it was fantastic to work with him, and I don't think that he would have been able to manage this on his own. I mean, he tried for 2 years on his own before coming to us. Um, and I'm thankful that we had the opportunity to help.
Yeah, yeah, me too. That's wonderful work. Can you tell us a little bit more about the veteran population in our service area overall?
Yeah, so veterans within Ohio, they make up about 7% of the state population. And the way I like to think of that is there's as many veterans in Ohio as there are people in South Dakota. So there's a lot of veterans here. So every day there's a veteran out there I know that needs our help. So uh, there's 12,000 veterans in our service area that are living in poverty. So that's not even just veterans, that's the ones that are living in poverty. And so the challenge study is something that the VA does. The VA, there's a lot of good folks there trying to end veteran homelessness. And as a part of that, they interview veterans who are homeless, who have been homeless, who are facing homelessness, and they also interview the frontline service agency people that are working with those folks. And year after year, 7 out of the top 10 unmet needs for these veterans are civil legal issues. So a big part of my job has been the outreach piece. We're making sure that these veterans and the folks who are helping them can recognize a civil legal issue and get it to us. And we can help see if there's a solution. Um, and perhaps there's a legal remedy for their problem. Um, we especially want to help those folks who are facing civil legal issues that are affecting their housing or their ability to work, um, or that are impacting their access to care and benefits that they deserve.
Yeah. And we were really excited to bring Anna on as a full-time attorney because we knew that this population had specific needs and may be reluctant to seek help. So since Anna has joined LASCO and since we've been able to expand work with Elliot as well, we've seen a big increase in terms of the veterans we've been able to help program-wide across those 36 counties in all types of civil legal cases. Anna, are there specific barriers that you see when working with the veterans population?
Yeah, so a unique thing about working with veterans is that there is a system or an infrastructure out there from the VA and then across our counties and at the state level for people that want to help veterans. The issue a lot of times, I think, is that people can end up on like a hamster wheel of referrals, and that's if they've asked for help. I think there's also these stereotypes that sometimes, unfortunately, our veterans might start to wear and take in as part of their identity, where uh, people in the community might think that all veterans have access to legal support, where the veteran might be facing a problem and think maybe this is a legal issue, but I can't afford an attorney, so end of story. And instead, we want them to make that call. I think there's also a stereotype that maybe all veterans have served in combat. Um, and as a part of that, people might think, oh, everybody's got this horrible trauma, or everybody has some sort of mental health disorder. Or maybe there's a veteran who didn't serve in combat, and so they think, well, then I don't deserve this help. And that's absolutely not true. So um, I think there's also a misunderstanding a lot of time that all veterans have access to VA healthcare, or that all veterans are in crisis. And so again, a big part of the work that Elliot and I do, and why I think it's important that we have people who work solely with veterans, is to um, help clients. Like I think of one of my clients who, in the past, she said that whenever she's asked for help, it seems like people just see her as either an angry Black woman or as a crazy veteran. And I think that Elliot and I, because of our experience with the VA and the veteran population, are able to meet those folks where they're at and see the person, not just the legal issue or the ramifications of what they're facing. And then we also have the connections with the VA and with the county level supports, and know how to get people tied in with the help that they need. So I think I might have stolen one of Kate's questions, but um, I what I wanted to get across is that you know I think everyone here at Legal Aid is we're trained in how to do trauma-informed care, or legal support, and with our veterans team, we do that too, and then we add in the the veteran and military culture specific knowledge also. Um, yeah. Let's see.
All right. Well, you've talked some about the full scope of civil legal needs, and I have learned from doing this for years that that's not always clear to the public what that means. So, can you talk about at LASCO what the services are, the legal needs that we're working on veterans with.
Yeah. So on the slide, I kind of put the main issues I think that I see in our veteran population here, especially housing issues, eviction, foreclosure, um, consumer issues, like if they've been sued over a debt or have questions about bankruptcy, or maybe a contractor came in and didn't do the work they were going to say they were going to, that they said they were going to do. Then there's, of course, some of the VA benefits specific issues. And that's not just disability, that's access to health care. Um, Sometimes someone might be facing an overpayment, which can be really difficult, especially if their only income really was a VA pension and then they're facing losing that. Um, we're also really trying to expand our discharge upgrade practice. And if folks aren't familiar with a discharge upgrade, so when someone leaves the military or they're discharged from the military, um, they receive a discharge status. And in a case where that is less than honorable, they might face obstacles with getting the benefits that I've talked about previously that are so life-changing or can be. Um, we also, um, the VA has its own process. The discharge upgrade is through the Department of Defense kind of lane. The VA also has something that we really want to help as many people as possible with because getting them access to VA services um, helps with housing, helps with health, helps with their disability, and um, it's just it's like opening a door. And so often I think they've been discharged for reasons that were outside of their control. So if anybody has more questions about that or wants to find out how they can help, I'd love to talk about that later. But um, now I think I'll tell one of our housing stories. So um, like I said, it's our biggest issue for veterans that come to legal aid. But Kimberly's uh, story is interesting in that it was a housing issue, but different than we usually see, a little bit unusual because she inherited a home from her aunt. And this was a huge opportunity for her family. Uh, she was trying to pay the mortgage, and the mortgage company wouldn't talk to her. And it turned out that her aunt had been behind on the mortgage. Uh, Mark Natowski in our Chillicothe office was able to work with her and work with the mortgage servicer to make it so that she could transfer the home into her name, start making those payments. And now this family has a home, and there's these cases are so fun because I think you can see, hopefully like a generational impact on this family. So,
Absolutely. And a lot of this work has been possible and thanks to some specific funding. And we're really grateful for the increase in veterans funding that we've received, which has allowed us to really expand in this area. It's a number of different funders. So the first one listed there is federal funding, which specifically focuses on legal services for homeless veterans and veterans at risk of homelessness, which does match up very well with many of the needs that we see. And that helps us across our whole service area. Similarly, the Ohio State Legislature, through some general revenue funds and through the Ohio Access to Justice, has provided legal support for veterans. And so that has also given us additional opportunities to serve veterans. We have a number of SSVF or supportive services for veteran families partnerships across our service area. And then Anna mentioned earlier the Grasbaugh Veterans Project Fund, which has just been is a wonderful, wonderful fellowship, was a summer fellowship and is now converted to this year-long fellowship, which really gives us even more opportunity to outreach, to reach out to the communities as well as to provide these important services.
so in addition to our funding partners, we also have um, partners that provide the physical location for our clinics. We've had a great partner in the Columbus VA. That's where we are here. So I mean, we're when I say like we're meeting veterans where they are, we're literally doing that. And I love working in our brief advice clinics. I staff our Columbus one monthly. Just this last past week, we had over 20 veterans stop in 2.5 hours, and you never know what legal issue is going to walk in the door. So it's always exciting. We also have brief advice clinics at our Newark VA, the Chillicothe VA, and we'll be coming soon to the Delaware VA clinic that's just opened up. And we also provide on-site legal services at several stand downs throughout the area. And if you're not familiar with what a stand down is, the general idea is that these are events where they want every social service agency in a county to be there so that when a veteran and sometimes non-veterans, depending on what kind of stand down you're at, when that person walks in, they're immediately linked up with every possible service. And it's a privilege to be able to be at those. We're consistent attenders of the Central Ohio stand down that's in October every year, and the Athens County stand down, and the Ross County stand down. So if you're familiar with one that we haven't been to, let me know. Um, I'd love nothing more than my calendar to be full in October, November, when a lot of these are, of going out into the community to be at these events. So I also wanted to provide an overview of how veterans reach us. I just mentioned those um, when I'm out in the community at an event. We also have referral partners, so like which mirror somewhat our funding partners because they're related that Kate mentioned. So there's the Volunteers of America in Columbus. They're the largest veteran-specific shelter. We have a partnership with them. There's Lutheran Social Services in Fairfield, the Washington Morgan Community Action partnership, which is 15 counties, and the Licking Coalition for Housing, which has 3 counties. Um, in the past 2 years, I've really tried to ingratiate myself with every VA social worker I can find so that if they see a veteran that they think has some sort of legal problem, they send them to me as soon as they get just the first inkling that something's up. So at the VA, there's social workers in housing, there's social workers on every healthcare team, there's social workers that work with veterans who are in the criminal legal system. We're also on the VA website if you type in legal services for veterans. Um, and then we also, of course, get a lot of veterans just uh, coming to our tenant advocacy projects, especially like the Franklin County one. Um, I've done some specific outreach with each Veteran Service Commission in every county that we have, trying to help them identify when there's a civil legal issue. And then there's some veteran-specific specialty dockets that I've done some outreach with. And if the veteran is facing something that's not a criminal issue, I'd love to have them refer that person to me. And of course, people just call in and we ask if you've served in the military because we want to know to either get you that person matched up with me and Elliot or just so that we can keep track of all our veterans that are in our system and make sure that they're getting holistic legal assistance.
Well, and how does building the partnerships with the veterans organizations and agencies that you've talked about impact our work?
Um, I think the best way to answer that question is by telling you James' story. So James is a veteran that I worked with. He has dementia and he had some mobility issues. Um, because of his dementia, there was an issue with his landlord that led to him facing eviction. Um, he was referred to us by his adult protective services social worker. And he also had a social worker he was working with at the VA. Um, but as social workers, they weren't able to um, help him with the legal parts of the eviction. So we had our social worker at TAP too, and we really had like wraparound services for James, and I was um, proud to be a part of that. And we were able to negotiate with his landlord to get him time to move into the type of housing that he wanted that had a higher level of support. Um, and we're still working to make sure that that eviction is sealed. And so that's not a mark on his record. Um, and, it's maybe unfortunate that we live in uh, where someone's having an issue related to their dementia that the only way people know how to deal with it is by kicking them out. But we were able to work here to prevent um, homelessness, and he went right into the place where I'm told he's very happy to be now. So, um,
That's great. And so while we are lucky to have many wonderful partners, we are always interested in working with new organizations and groups. And Anna has been great about that. And so we would encourage you to help us spread this work. And if there is anyone that we should be connected with that we're not, please feel free to share that information with Anna. She's happy to follow up, happy to connect so that we are really getting to everywhere in the community that we should be. If you are looking for other ways to get involved, you can invest your time, and there are a lot of opportunities with our veterans work to get involved. So the stand downs that Anna mentioned, we always have pro bono volunteers participate in those. They are truly wonderful events. Those are great opportunities. The monthly clinics, the weekly clinics, all have pro bono opportunities. So if you're interested in getting involved, there's lots of opportunities. So please feel free to reach out in that as well as supporting the work financially as well, and then sharing our work. A lot of people still don't know what we do. And so if you are able to share it on social media, if you're able to share the newsletter, that all really helps, both for the veterans we serve, for the organizations that we work with, and for the organization, our organization, LASCO, as a whole. So we have gone largely for the half an hour that we had hoped to. So I just want to thank Anna for coming, for sharing a little bit about yourself, for sharing about the work, for all of the wonderful work that you do here at LASCO and that your team does here at LASCO. And wait, we have a breaking thing with 1 minute left. We have a question. So, Anna, if you have with 1 minute left, we have a question. Does LASCO consider the veterans' disability compensation when deciding if they qualify for legal assistance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, if you remember those specific funders that Kate mentioned, the VA funding in particular, if a veteran is facing homelessness or is homeless, we do not have to consider income. We're able to support folks who are over income in that respect. And then if they're facing losing that disability income, then there's uh, certain ways that we can work with that in order to consider someone eligible. So, but short answer, yes. So,
Yeah. And I would always say refer, when in doubt, send someone to us. And we'll try our best to serve them. And some of the eligibility pieces get complicated with the different grants, but when in doubt, refer to us and we will do our best to help that veteran. And if we can't, to try to get them to someone else who can. So with that, I will let you all go. Thank you again for spending a little bit of time with us this morning. We really appreciate it. And thank you again, Anna.
thanks.